All right, welcome back to another episode of the Conviction Fiction, the podcast where we rewrite the stories that were never meant to define us. All right, I'm your host again, Antoine Rivers, and today we're diving deep into education, justice, language, and transformation with someone whose experience spans prison bars and policy journals. Our guest today is CJ Tarter, Vice President of We See You Human Justice Corporation. He's a published scholar in the Wake Forest Journal of Law and Policy and a powerhouse of lived experience. He holds degrees in paralegal studies, multiple certifications in human rights and forensic disciplines, and has helped build prison education programs from the inside out. CJ is also a native Spanish speaker with over 30 years of professional translation experience. He also serves as a behavioral specialist, teaching Governor Deal's counseling initiatives. So if you're looking for someone who has turned a prison cell into a classroom and a movement, you're in for something special today. Welcome to the Conviction Fiction. All right, I'm back. CJ, man, thank you for being here. You've done more during your incarceration than some folks managed to do in a lifetime.
Well, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, you have to do what you can do to, kind of keep yourself sane and, kind of look for the future. So, yeah, I took advantage of whatever I could. So,
awesome. So let's start from the beginning. What was the moment where you decided that prison wasn't going to be the end of your story?
I think early on when I went in, I was lucky to have a really good support structure. And I had a lot of people that had been in prison for a long time that worked as my personal mentors. Mm-hmm. And so I learned the good and the bad from them. And I kind of made a personal guarantee to myself that I was not going to be a statistic. I wasn't going to be that. And I made that promise to myself. And fortunately, I was able to live up to that. And again, I was fortunate to have a lot of people that had a lot of life experience, and they were generous enough with me to be able to share that experience with me. So not only could I get their experience, but it was served as a basis for me to begin to build my own experiences and my own life structure on.
That's wild. Definitely something that a lot of people never experience. But so you were a behavioral specialist during your final years incarcerated. Mm-hmm. What did that role involve, and how did that come about?
Behavioral specialist is a designation that they give you. It's normally given to the counselors in the institutions. Luckily for me, and I'm not going to call any names, of course, but one of the counselors that I worked with, she was really she was pro education. She believed in, if you were trying to do the right thing, that she was going to do the right thing with you and for you to get you going in the right direction. And so I started working with her. And in that time, we had to get certified, of course, to be able to teach the classes. Right. Some of those were cognitive classes. Some of those classes were substance abuse classes. Some were family violence classes. And so there were several different avenues that you could pursue for your self-help and to get the counseling that you needed. Right. And so all of those, once you became certified to be able to teach those classes, then you were given a designation of a behavioral specialist. And of course, a lot of that went into the fact that the classes were cognitive, trying to change your mindset from a criminal perspective to thinking to a more productive way of thinking, and then being able to move forward on that. And so I think initially, historically, that's where the designation came from. Okay. But later on, it was just that you were teaching those classes in that way.
Okay, cool. So what was it like implementing like Governor Deal? You was up there with the governor. What was it like? I mean, because uh the governor, I got my feelings about governors, and I had my feelings about governors, especially when I was in.
Sure.
Um, but
Right.
working with that his initiative, what was that like working from inside the prison system?
Well, I didn't work directly with him. I did meet him several times, and he was really hands on, and he came out, and I think that I was like you when we talk about all of these things that Governor Deal was going to do. I've heard this for 30 years.
Right,
What
right.
makes him special? And so it kind of works that way, and so once some of the and I began to see some of the changes that he was making.
Mhm.
One of the things was early on there was a questionnaire, and people were supposed to fill out this questionnaire, and the answers to this questionnaire was supposed to follow you into your community supervision,
Mhm.
and it addressed things like if you had medical issues, if you had cognitive issues, if you had maybe you needed mental health counseling, if you need to continue your if you need to continue whatever counseling that you may have had,
Mhm.
substance abuse, whatever it may be. And that was a fresh take, because normally you completed your classes and you went out, and there was no care that followed you into
Right,
the next step.
right.
And so for me, that was revolutionary. And of course, by the time that Governor Deal came in and he began this initiative, it was, I had been involved with the classes and teaching and education, law library, whatever.
Right.
And we had never, nothing like that had ever happened. And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe he is going to do something different. And then we began to see, and then he began to come out and speak with us. And he was like really a breath of fresh air, that I think he had everybody's best interest at heart. And I think that if you were a criminal, then there was a place for you to be under Governor Deal. But I think that if you were like one of the vast majority of people who had been in prison, and you had just made a mistake, then he was going to help you get what you needed to rectify that mistake so that you can continue on with your life and be productive.
Okay.
And for me, that was the biggest thing for me, and because I saw the change. It wasn't just rhetoric, but I see the changes, and that's what made me buy into his initiative.
Okay. So with that being said, with this new program at the prisons, now did
Mhm.
that system did it support that work, or was it kind of you were pushing uphill? Because I know I've been in dorms and stuff where there are programs and stuff, and they try to make it hard, like, oh, you trying to do this, you're trying to get this done. We're gonna lock everything up. Everybody on their they made it a little bit tougher. So where you were and with the program, did the system, I mean, like the guards, the sorry, all these people are the wardens. Were they did they support it, or were you pushing uphill?
I think that that's a very good question. And I think that it depended on the administration.
Or the
That was
shift?
that was the major
It
difference.
depended on the shift, right?
There you go, exactly right. And so it kind of worked that way. I think that it depended on if you had a because wardens were like everybody else. You had some people that were like, okay, these are human beings, and they can improve and they can change. And then you had the other wardens that were of the mindset that, well, these are a bunch of criminals. I don't know why we're wasting the money, why we're doing this. And so, and so the experience that we ran into for those things, it kind of depended on the administration,
Yeah.
because I spent probably 20 years, probably 20 25 years of my incarceration working in some form of in some form of education,
Right.
whether it was GED or classes of that nature,
Mhm.
whether we were rolling out education programs, bilingual education programs, whether it was in whatever. And so I worked in it field in some way. But I
Mhm.
do think that there were times when we met resistance, when, especially later on when we began to go to when Georgia State opened up the college program at Phillips, and revived, so to speak, the college programs offered in prison.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that at some point that we did run into that discouragement.
Mhm.
But then again, too, with the, we understand that the power of education speaks for itself. And so I think that if you had those administrations that wanted good for you and better for you, then I
Mhm.
think that they supported the educational initiatives. If it was one of those that were more punitive, then yeah, I think that they absolutely interfered as much as they could.
All right, awesome, man. And this is why I do what I do, because I know what it's like to be behind those walls and trying to prove yourself into the world that you're more than just a number. Now, CJ's story of becoming a behavioral specialist and leading counseling programs while incarcerated, that's the kind of transformation we try to spotlight on the conviction fiction. Um, you didn't wait for a second chance. You pretty much built your own. And that's the heart of our mission. That's what I try to do here, to show that growth, the healing, and leadership that can start inside and continue on the outside.